For the purposes of this video, I will be showing pictures and images of female video game characters, actresses and Armours whose attire might offend some people. If you are easily offended by images of barely dressed women, please don't watch. You have been warned.
Hello number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and I'm here today with my friend Aurora.
Ciao.
And we are here today to talk about a very interesting topic, that is the topic of women in armour. Now for this specific topic, we will have a wearing time, but obviously I can't do that since I'm not a woman. So my friend Aurora is here to help us out with that. So without further ado, let's get to it. So, women in armour, women in armour. Now obviously we have a very strange and distorted, perhaps, idea of a woman in armour. Why? Because of video games and films. We always have this idea of women in armour. But the situation, historically speaking, was very different. So the first question should be, did women really wear armour?
Now of course, if it's fantasy, it's a fantasy setting, then it's okay, I suppose. But what really puzzles me, and the reason why I make these videos, is because some people, and a lot of people, in the word some there is a huge number, a lot of people think that only because they see things like this, then it's history. Because perhaps in their minds it looks somewhat medieval, so plausible. Now, the first problem I have with women's armour in video games and films is that it's not armour, because armour's first function is to protect you, to defend you, and this thoroughly fails in any possible fathomable attempt of protecting the persons wearing it. However, I must say that considering how easily people in armour are sliced and slashed in films regardless of what they are wearing, then I suppose it could even make sense, perhaps. Because I mean, why even bother if that was the case? But of course it wasn't. Or are the times they actually do bother, and that's when filmmakers and video games makers take the word breastplate a little bit too literally. Now, apart from the fact that this is utterly moronic as a concept, a woman needing her breastplate to have the actual shape of her breasts, it makes no sense, because this comes from the assumption that a woman would have to wear her breastplate being naked under it. But that's not the case. That's not how you wear plate armor. You would have male armor underneath the breastplate, and underneath male armor, but at least a gambeson. You would have a gambeson underneath for padding. So considering all these different layers, it's even a woman with a very pronounced breast wouldn't need it. Now, let's examine these three for a moment. And the one on the left, of course they're all ridiculous, but the one on the left at least kind of could make sense, to the point of when we think of the muscular armor of the Greeks and early Romans, which was resembling the bosom of a man and the abs and everything, so it could make sense. Too bad that actually nobody did it, so this could make sense, but it doesn't, never happened. And of course it's completely unprotected. Now the one in the middle is a masterpiece of utter suicidal attitude, because of those gaps that are there to help your opponent, because of course you need to be nice, particularly if they are noobs, you want to help them out. Because look at those gaps, they are perfect for arrows and darts, or even some maybe thin daggers, precisely the ones that, historically speaking, each knight was carrying to battle. And the one on the right, a bit more protected at least, I suppose, but the actual part that resembles the breast would be perfect for leading every strike to the bosom directly to your throat, just to make sure you don't actually walk away from the fight. You might have as well just shot yourself in the head. Much better, sweetheart, much better. For example, let's examine this Teutonic armor. Oh no, sorry, wrong picture. Please choose your character. Holy cricket. Here is an example of cup level armor. Right, I wonder why it actually never happens to males. It only happens to women. Oh, I mean, well, except some rare cases, I suppose. I know, I'm being polemic. It's not a matter of protection, you silly. It's just because they look sexy and they want to sell. Right. So are you telling me that this does not look sexy? And actually, believe it or not, there is a game that, contrary to all others, portrays a woman in armor the way she should look, with an armor exactly the same as that of a man. Dark Souls. Yes, great, thank you so much, game, I love you. Wait, have I just said that I love Dark Souls? Even if I almost destroyed my joypad a couple of times, but I love you. And occasionally we also have images that actually get really close to how a woman in armor would have looked in the real Middle Ages, like in this picture here. Although there is one little problem, and that is, if I really need to be picky, which of course I am, that's my job, which is the problem that she is wearing a 15th century suit of armor. That's what it looks like, and she's using a shield. Shields were not used anymore at that time, and that's because she is wearing a full plate, so she doesn't actually need the shield. And that's a problem that you also have in Dark Souls, that you can use the shield if you want, even if it doesn't really make sense to do so. But what can you do? I mean, good, yeah, let's be happy with what we have. But how can we find good iconography that can help us understand what a woman in armor would have looked like in at least the late Middle Ages? Well, I think a good example would be Joan of Arc. And please excuse my pronunciation here, I don't know how to pronounce her name in English, and because please keep in mind I am not English, believe it or not. I am indeed Italian as you can get, as 75% of my blood is diluted pizza. I've only lost the accent, and no matter how much I search for it, I still haven't managed to find it. So, Joan of Arc, considered a heroine of France. That is, after they actually let the Brits burn her at the stake without doing anything. But what can you do? Baguette and snails. She was only 17, but she did go to war, and they did make a full suit of armor for her. And we have iconography. As you can see, it looks exactly like the suit of armor of a man. And I think she looks fantastic in it. Because plate armor is the way it is, out of necessity, not because it looks good, although it does, of course, but the layout and articulations of the plates are the best solution that designers, so the smiths of the time, could come up with, considering all aspects, not only defense but also balance, mobility, protection. So difference between male and female plate armor is virtually trivial. But that's that, I suppose, and I hope that this kind of gives you a brief introduction and a short idea on this topic. Women's armor, just like men's armor. Now, a little thing I would like to say before we start wearing time. Now, please keep in mind that the plate armor I have, particularly the cuirass actually, it's not a really good example of a plate armor. It's more of a costume armor, although it is made of steel, but it's not very expensive. It's a bit of a cheap version of armor. That's because, unfortunately, I cannot afford anything better than that at the moment, but in the future I am saving up for some proper plate armor, and I will. But I think that for the image that we are trying to look at now, through wearing time, it will be enough to help us understand what a woman in armor would look like.
It is now, as you know, wearing time. Alright then, so we finished the wearing time. She's wearing my full plate armor, so let's ask her a question about it. Quindi il fatto che non hai la parte della corazza adatta al seno è un problema?
In realtà è un po' stretto. Sarebbe meglio quella di Xina.
Sì, certo, come no. Quindi no, non è un problema.
No, va bene, va bene.
Va bene. Ok. Grazie Aurora. Thank you very much Aurora for helping us. Alright then, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please thumbs up and remember to subscribe to my channel.
And remember,
The Metatron has spread his wings. Ciao.
no.
No? Vuoi dire? No?
Il mio inglese è orrendo.
No?